I wanted to go live at 11, but anyway, uh, um, New York, Monroe County. I'm afraid I'm not going to talk about this if I don't talk about it today, and I'm still renovating my office. The district attorney from Monroe County, New York, um, was driving home, going about 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, which is actually reckless driving for most states, I think, and is heading home. Cop flashes his lights. The DA's in a big black SUV, and she doesn't pull over. She drives home. She picks up her cell phone. She calls the chief of police and says, "Hey, tell your boy to get his ass off me. I don't want to mess with him." She says she's going home. She's kind of freaking out. This is not about prosecuting her. It's, "Hey, Joshua, thank you. Oh, man, that's great to hear. Appreciate it. Love the new book," says Joshua. So this is not, I'm not trying to prosecute her. It is so easy to pile on a DA. And I say pile on her. I'm not trying to stop you from piling on her either. I want to talk about ego. I want to talk about her ego. And just so I could say a quick point about it, I just need to, in case you didn't hear about this just happened. It seems to have gone pretty viral, so you've probably already heard about it. She drives home. The police officer, he's kind of a younger guy, follows her home. Obviously with his lights on, he's trying to make a traffic stop. She pulls into her garage and gets out and starts giving him shit, saying, I deal with murders all day, and I'm the law, I'm the DA. And then she mocks him by saying, "Well, here, go ahead and write me a ticket. I'm not going to prosecute myself. Why would I prosecute myself?" she says. And the rookie cop, the whole time, he's like, "Why are you being mean to me? Why you're the DA? Why are you mad at me for pulling someone over?" And she's one of the things she says is, "Don't you see the black SUV as if there's a kind of a dignitary debutante kind of a thing?" I mean, she's obviously not thinking rationally. You're not going to be a DA and think that rationally. Hey, Nasik Chef, you're not going to be able to do both those and be irrational. The point is that you realize she has to be a rational person most of the time for her to reach this position. Okay, so let's if anyone is still here who's in that residual retarded audience where there's like a good guy and a bad guy, I'm just trying to get you out real quick so we can talk about this. So she's having a breakdown. She's having a breakdown, and society would say it's because her ego is too big. Yeah, man, her ego's too big. She's got to check her ego, brah. You can't be walking around with that ego. And it's keep thinking that way. It is, I don't need you to change the way you're thinking on this. But there is an important point. Her ego is actually atrophied. It's atrophied because the district attorney's office hired her. Not only did the DA hire her, but every day when she walks into a courthouse, someone in a uniform with a gun recognizes her face and says, "You do not have to go through the normal security procedures that we expect everyone else to go through." Okay, that's one. Secondly, anytime she walks into a court, all the bailiffs, all the other attorneys pop tall and give her this reverence. It's the same reverence as to why a judge wears a robe, right? It's the judge gets to take the robe off. And people still know who he is. The same thing happens, but it really is proof of this costuming. The cop's in a costume, the judge is in a costume, the DA has the black SUV. And all of these things atrophy their ego because they are no longer required to bring it from themselves. They are pulling this torque of belief, of confidence, of, "I do not need to pull over for police officers." Where does she get that power? And you might think it's from her huge ego, and it's not. It's from society telling her that she does not have to follow or play by these kinds of rules. It's a privilege that's extended to her because of her position. And it's this privilege, I'm putting this in air quotes, it's this privilege that causes her ego to atrophy. If you were to be carted around in a litter, in Rome, these were called litters. The rich person sits inside of this litter. Isn't that funny? And usually six, we'll call them slaves, but I don't think we understood the entire relationship back then. The pallbearers, the litter bearers, would carry you through the city, and that it wouldn't be hard to imagine if you were uh, ridden in a litter everywhere. You're probably not going to be very good at walking like a long distance. You're probably not going to be used to the sun, things like that, right? It atrophies. So, anytime that you're seeing someone that's suffering from a big ego, you're actually looking at the atrophication of ego, right? We can say atrophication. We're friends here, and that it's that muscle that's gotten weaker and just simply stops working. We do that. We do that. And we know that we do this because there's certain professions that we only allow someone to, for example, we only want the president to hold two offices, and then you can take 4 years off and then come back, which is kind of fucked up. We know what happens to firefighters. We know what happens to paramedics. Holy shit. We definitely know what happens to surgeons. We look at what happens to literally anyone inside a military industrial complex, and that there's only a few certain number of years that we could really utilize them to do the task that we need them to do. Even underwater welding has this connotation, believe it or not. Ballet, cycling, all your professional sports. Understand that there's a certain thoroughbred nature that's pulled out of you, and there's like a exchange and whatnot. And this really is the ego. You're manifesting the power to believe that you can beat Mike Tyson in the ring. And so you go into the ring. I'm talking about old Mike Tyson. I mean, younger Mike Tyson. I wouldn't get in the ring with him. I'm just saying things are weird right now with that whole thing. So check out that. If you want, you can watch that video. And you're watching someone in atrophy. And this is the closest you can see, I think, to a narcissistic attack. What we would call a narcissistic attack is actually a narcissistic shock. It's a kind of shock. And the DA from Monroe County is in narcissistic shock as this occurs. The next day, she's apparently called and apologized and says she's not above the law. And it's not true. She's a DA. She's definitely above the law. Neither you nor I could tell a cop or call his boss and say, I'm driving home, tell that wingnut to leave me the fuck alone, and then get in his face when they pulled up and only get a ticket from that. Okay? So even as you're going to watch, if you're watching the response to this, you're going to watch a bunch of people put a black hat on her, and which is fine. That you signed up for that. This is why, honestly, this is why Masons don't mind people in uniforms dying for ritualistic events. To be honest with you, they're respecting the contract deeper than the people that actually sign the contract are. Does it make sense? Am I hitting some buttons here? If you really want to blame the Mason, which fine, but let's blame the Masons for everything. We also really need to understand what happens when you sink into a uniform and what kind of obligations that you are taking on yourself. And the DA would definitely be this uniform, wouldn't it? It definitely would. Who is she? What did I miss? This is the district attorney of Monroe County in New York, was pulled over by a cop. It's actually kind of a minor thing. Misunderstood, but I'm using it to illustrate what a narcissistic breakdown looks like. And I'm not doing it in a look what a piece of shit this person is. Although we can do that, it's fine. Now I've sort of gotten off on this tangent about why Freemasons think it's okay to watch people in uniform die. But But anyone who said thank you for your service, you're a Freemason, bitch. So suck it up. I mean, you're literally inducing the same ritual. So if you look, it's so twisted, guys. It's so twisted. I think this is going to be hard for many of you to swallow, but the path to God is going to require logos. But that logos is going to be to an extremity that most of us simply cannot fathom. And one of those logoses would certainly be the principles of law, the utterance of words, the taking of oath, the donning of a uniform, the ritualistic engagements of your posture. Sorry, I'm slouching right now. I don't. I just am enjoying this posture right now. But the all of the legal engagements that you enter into, whether it be putting on a uniform, taking commas on a paycheck, or taking a position where everyone puts you in a litter, or you can drive an SUV, recklessly drive an SUV in your own neighborhood. All of these are showing you the responsibilities of what it would be like to be God. And frankly, all of us are like, I'm not cool with that. That is way too much responsibility. And when we mourn the people that died at 9/11, I'm talking about the rescuers that went into the demolition site, we're mourning the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic conjecture, the logos that Freemasons held us to. And they're not really Freemasons. It's just that's what the people that want the most attention from stirring the most fear call them, or the Luciferians, right? So if you're looking for them, those are the ones that want you to hold you to logos more than you and I, included, me included, are willing to think. Until I can really control all of my fantasies, I don't mean control necessarily in other words of dictate, but until all of the musings that we all have, whether we wish someone well or better, but more importantly, I think it's more about ourselves. I haven't wished other people bad in a long, long time. I mean, a long time. And I've had a lovely run, even just last summer, people that have wronged me that I've just been like, yeah, it's I'm talking about the utterance that you command to yourself. If you catch yourself in a bad day and you say, God damn it, or you curse yourself or your finger or your hand or your partner or your boss or your client or whatever it is, but more importantly, yourself, the utterances that we give ourselves are the logos of God. This is us having these communiques with ourselves. And I think the only way I'm going to get there is to compassionate other people's behavior. I'm talking about compassionate in the sonar definition, right? Of like looking at the DA and understanding that this is really a case of atrophy. The most compassionate thing people could have done to that DA is to treat her like anyone else who outran a police officer. That would have been the most compassionate way to treat them. Some of you may remember my video about the other Matt. I'm talking about this other guy named Matt. And I felt that the most compassionate thing for Matt was to have someone like me tell him, Matt, you feel incredibly shallow to me, and it doesn't feel like you would give two shakes about anyone. It's just, I think that that's a form of love to tell someone that. And I know that because I don't have hatred or disdain for him. I have discomfort around his presence. And the most humane thing I could do would be to say that. Would be to treat him exactly in the contractual logos that God would require of each of us. And I think as we raise into this state, which I don't think I have it. I'm not trying to say as we reach into this new state, it's going to take us a while to get there. A lot of us are stepping on each other's feet and worse. And it's a lot to swallow. It's most of my life, I think, has just been that, just like swallowing things like that. And I think the reason why is because I'm attuning myself to the appetite of compassion. And the appetite of compassion is that it doesn't really help for me to castigate or to curse someone. It really helps me to understand them, not so I can feel sorry for them, but so that I can understand their motivations fully and see their true essence, at least my version of their true essence. I'll even go that far and navigate around them. There are cougars right now that would fuck you up. There's bears that are out there right now that would fuck you up. I am not interested in you and I going out and crusading and finding those cougars and those bears and fucking them up. That doesn't make me feel any better. And if we want to put on uniforms and go find those cougars and those bears, we're just Zionists in camouflage. And that's even worse. Some of the most beautiful things that you notice about ancient war, not I don't mean berserker war. I'm talking about formalized, paid for professional war, right? Which is the same as professional sports. You're losing your meat on the field, whether it be a football field or a battlefield. You only have so much life force, and you are signing up to be a gladiator. And regardless of what the bureaucracy says, you don't really get to decide if you agree with who the other person wants you to fight. You don't even get to have a true natural disagreement with the person you're trying to kill. And that there's a kind of logos that's required when you're dealing with a child who behaves like that. The logos would require you to hold them to account. The All Father would be required, I think. This is, I think, part of the Freemason ritual about people in uniform are supposed to die because it's the only way they're going to learn their logos. I don't mean that all uniforms are evil, but I don't even think evil exists. So even if you're thinking that, man, you're already confused. You have no business being here. So, it's okay. There's a million other people that you're going to have a better time watching than me. But this concept of being held to account really makes 9/11, World War II, World War I, all of these events, even the fucking Falkland Islands, really hit home for me as such a logical next step. I've watched, and I grew up in the military. My father was a Marine. I was in the Navy and with a classified rating during wartime. It's hard to argue that you wouldn't get more military than me. And I'm the one telling you this. I'm the one telling you what thank you for the service, thank you for your service does. And others try and tell you that, but they have so much fucking PTSD that those words can't get out, and we don't even thank them for their service. We invent concrete spikes to stop people from sleeping under the bridge, right? And hey, I'm not even saying I don't get it. I think that you're looking at a society that, because there's so many hyena, it's going to steal its own, it's going to cannibalize itself until it's too expensive not to. And so we're creating the smart city. You get all this. But deep down, it's people like the DA. It's people like the DA that are driving home that have been fighting for the machine the entire time until they notice the machine is coming after them. And then they feel so insulted, but it's too late. It's too late because they've already been wrapped in the cellophane of that uniform. And isn't that what we're doing with the whole truth movement now? Trying to figure out what's true? Trying to figure out what's real? And we notice it's not about what's true or it's about what's real. It's what story can we tell people that the most people will believe. And then it becomes a game of how do I manipulate the audience the same way the uniform manipulates the cop or the veteran or the DA or the judge or whatever else. These systems are here to prove themselves inadequate to do the job that we have asked them to do. And the reason why these systems are here to fail is because to disassociate is to fail. To disassociate is to fail. And I think we failed the DA. And I think if the DA had more ego, she would prosecute herself and turn herself in. And that's not going to happen. And one of the reasons why it's not going to happen is because the people that don't want to live by logos are the ones that are judging her. And to watch her fall on her own sword and do the samurai move and be honorable would make it harder for all of them. And so they don't. We don't hold each other to account because of it. That's why I get attacked when I say what I said to Matt. And it's okay. It should be expensive for you to pollinate the world. It should be expensive for me to pollinate the world. Good or bad. Makes sense. It's the gas fee, you know? Just reading it. Wonder how many square doesn't join gangs. Yeah, you know, I think the moral of the story is you're gonna have to join gang. You know, I don't. So there's nothing wrong with like don't join gangs. That's healthy and good advice. But also, it's not possible. You are not going to survive here solo. It's not going to work. You're going to have to engage in some sort of tribe, and you're going to go into that tribe. You're going to notice that the alpha is not actually the one that's the most capable. The alpha is the one that makes the group the most comfortable to be alpha. And this is why companies fail. Most companies fail after 7 years because the amount of power it takes to be in that position and go against the grain of the group is frankly almost impossible. You could do it for a while, but it wears you down no different than a gladiator or a veteran or anything else. Energetically, it wears you down. That's why the lie will always seem to dominate just inside of this Piscean climate. I really mean Piscean. You know, even when I was like Richie from Boston, all the other people, I was trying to use the word Aquarius around these people because I needed them to understand that this is a different mode of thinking that's going to be required of you. You're going to have to embrace this Freemason logos, which means that if you signed up to follow orders, then you should follow orders, even when you disagree with those orders, because you need to understand the lesson of what you've signed up for. And marriage is really the same thing. All commitments, all engagements really are this same thing where we have the opportunity to create this atmosphere of freedom, but really understand the power of our own utterances, of our own logos, right? Of like our own insistence. Anyway, hey Stretch, good to see you. Let's see. Bonjour Amel. DS Den Althelia. Althelia. No more tribe of one for me. So I say tribe of one because I think you have to tribe up. And I think the very first thing you do is notice that your Osiran body is a tribe. When you hit your finger, right, you disassociate from the tribe that's in the end of your finger, and you're like, damn you, and you've actually damning your finger. You don't even know what you're doing. So yeah, I think tribe of one. I don't think that anything that I'm saying now actually comes close to contradicting what I've said before, with the exception of I started pushing symbiosis last year, and I'd never really pushed that before during COVID, because I think during that event, I think that your immune system needed to not tribe up then. It's more of like a sympathetic versus parasympathetic state. And so I live alone. I definitely try and be independent, but mainly just because the moment that I symbiote with others, I notice how expensive it is, even with the crowds and like the people that that form community around YouTubers puts me in a state where people are asking me to validate them when maybe I don't feel that they deserve validation. And even that ends up, so then they cost me, they try and punish me, and and I was off the air for a while because of it. And it's a very real. I don't want to overpower you guys in the sense of like, I don't think that I'm going to be able to create an island of one and ever exist in the symbiotic way that I wouldn't want to be here if I wasn't connecting to people. I just wouldn't. I I get that. I think that there's part of my ancestors that were like, yeah, I'll kill anything that moves and harvest it of its meat and live in a cave and call myself successful because I can out gorilla, I can create gorilla traps more than anyone else can and dig giant pits with spikes that stick out of it, and just, you know, interact by watching people suffer from my wrath. I mean, I think that if you're not going to go symbiotic, I think that's where you're looking at. And if you get enough success, you can build your own barricade where you can somehow protect yourself from the military-industrial complex that's going to come right after you when you do that. So you're going to have to live in some sort of a Somalia place. And so I think that there are good people that live in Somalia. I think that there are good quote unquote evil pirates that do exist, but I also think that their version of good is so much more vicious. And you can respect vicious if you want. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I think in a lot of ways my father was that way. He was very, just being a Marine, I just think that he'd just been bred in the blood of the viciousness, of I'm a badass because I kill. I, I it feels like that my past lives, I'm talking about my grandfather. I think my past lives are just my ancestors, by the way, but it's like my past lives has shown me the lessons of trying that viciousness, but also trying the logos. Because like my grandfather was like a lawyer, so it's like let's take a lawyer and then the most vicious Marine, and then let's combine them, and then you end up with someone like me who's like, let's be nice to each other, and the whole time I'm being attacked for it. It's all of those are chemo smells. All of those are smells that are emanating from my pores that are dictating a certain kind of prawn economy that I have with you, but also those things are also really showcasing you the true nature of the world. The true nature of the world is that we want to disavow the DA and cannibalize her as long as we can do that every 3 or 4 months. As long as we can come up with an Epstein and just burn that witch, like every 8 months or so, everyone's going to be complacent again. And that's fine. It's not fine for me. I'm saying that this is the egregore saying I'm fine with this. And you're watching a young child, a collective young child grow. It's scary to think about the morality of a 11-year-old who hasn't had a lot of sleep and is afraid of monsters under their bed, being in charge of all of your justice, roads, bureaucracy, healthcare industry, and whether or not you should have something stuck into you before you enter a building. All of these things are being dictated to you by the egregore that's, roughly 11 years old. So we watch how much of a tantrum it is. There's a truck out here, and if that's too loud, I'll go. We can do this later. My dad had a missing leg too. Yeah, exactly, Adrian. Even a hermit lives among the world. You help me validate myself. That's enough. So you guys help me validate myself too. This is why I feel like I would be a hypocrite if I said that I had to be completely independent. I hope this makes sense. Hey Thomas, good to see you. The um man, I wish I could come down to Florida to see you guys. That really warms my heart. Congratulations on that. Because Aunt Underwood, Miss Underwood, this is why like a year and a half ago, I started noticing, like I noticed people in our group that were like, yeah, I murder my own chickens now. I'm better for it. And they're miserable. Like they're so miserable. They drink a lot. There's something about if you're gonna kill your chickens, you're gonna have to drink a lot. You're gonna have to turn into a real shit bag. And I get it. If I had to do that, I think the same thing would happen. This is why dentists are psychopathic and suicidal. This is why veterinarians are suicidal. You're doing a job that's fucking, oh, it is removing the humanity from you. As the symbiote, I've admitted this to myself. I'm not interested in Nimroding this place. Why do I keep saying Nimrod? I'm fascinated by this story of Nimrod because he invented this sound, this thump, and it's kind of like a boy band. It feels like the closest thing we've had to Nimrod would be like a Taylor Swift is trying to be a Nimrod. She's invoking a tone, a pound, that makes people work for her. The sound is so intoxicating that people work for her. And America the Beautiful is one of those things. The Pledge of Allegiance, right? Amazing Grace. These are this concept of Nimrod creating a tune that's so hypnotic it causes people to follow. And it's going to require a certain uniform, a certain dress, and most importantly, a Pied Piper, right? The song. What is the melody of this? And historically, we've been mesmerized by song. Look at what Vegas does. Do you realize how many people drop? I don't know the statistics, but you realize this. It's a mecca of shedding. And when you think about the Monroe DNA the Monroe DA that I talked about at the beginning, and you ask, well, why did that happen? It happened because she wanted to shed. That DA is not in touch with herself enough to understand, because her conscious mind doesn't want to shed. Her conscious mind wants to stay where it is. But there's part of her, we'll never know why. Part of her wanted to shed. And it saw the most perfect opportunity to shed, and it shed. It shed its skin. It shed its skin to remind herself that she is more than her job. This is why I think it happened. And that spiritually, she needed to go through this experience to remind herself that she was more than her job and that she was in atrophy. It's like an emergency kind of a situation, you know? This is probably getting too loud. I'll go now. Hey guys, if you want it Wednesday night, we're doing a group. Hello from Miami. Hello, Eddie. Yeah, I'm thankful for butchers too. See, Miss Underwood, we get along fine because we're both symbiotic in this way. Maybe she got treated like Hillary did in the jungle. Yeah. Even that, guys. Even hey, Alex, happy Monday. Even Hillary, the body count. Don't you think that when I first saw the Clinton body count, it made me feel better? Is that gross? Or is that just human? It made me feel better because it made me feel that I wasn't crazy. Epstein helps people the same way. It makes people feel like that there is justice, and all it takes is just to create one icon, you know? Excuse me, and just sacrifice him. That's why we burn witches. We don't burn witches because we're evil. We burn witches because we're not really in touch with the responsibility of our own logos, if that makes sense. Oh, good. Glad to hear it, Josh. Oh, audio's fine? Oh, okay. It seems really loud here. Hello from Kansas. What do you mean body count has dual meaning, Jason? Tell us that. Tell us what you mean. Oh, it heightens the dilation. Good. Oh, yeah, it's when I live stream now, I'm no longer going to accept what's my point. I until this place has a point, we all keep living even though we don't know exactly the point, and I think live stream's kind of that way too. But yeah, I just been renovating my everything's a mess. It's the only piece I have is outside. I just mean like work wise. But it's only just because I just keep making things cooler. You probably do that too. You know, I'm gonna go because this is probably boring. But I want to tell you one more thing. I go to if you look at a microscope at some pond scum, you're gonna see a little protozoa. I don't know what you'd call them, but they'll find a little splinter of wood and they'll swallow that wood. And if you watch them long enough, they'll obliterate the wood, they'll eviscerate it, they'll turn it into a bunch of little parts, and then they'll spit it out. And I do that too. I go to the hardware store, I buy a piece of plywood, I bring it home, I cut it into a bunch of tiny little pieces, and then I either keep some of those pieces or I don't. And if you were looking at our society through a microscope, through a two-dimensional zoomed out view, it would look like that. It would look like this. As above, so below is so much more profound than you can imagine, and it makes sense that people would associate that as some sort of evil belief, because if you're afraid of the truth is going to seem evil, wouldn't it? Oh, I got it. I think, yeah, when I say body count, I don't mean how many people Bill Clinton has slept with. That's adorable. I mean body count is in the number of people that have gone missing, or have suicided themselves or have died by gunshot that were employed with the Clintons. It's a lot. It's a lot. Like, it's a lot. And I have not dedicated my life to tracking these down. So prune the fuck out of. I'm not even gonna say my lips. I'm telling you what that the Clinton body count is. There's a pretty famous meme that went around for a while, but I think it's like 338 or something. Okay, now prune that. I don't know if those people were all murdered because of nefarious purposes. I don't. I do know. I wanted to look into at least one of them. And what I looked into happened to be the cocaine laundering operation that the Clintons hooked up in Arkansas that involved private aircraft and the CIA. And that it looked to me like the Clintons. I almost wrote a book about this. I didn't want to get shot. That's supposed to be a joke. But at the time, I was like, I don't know, even know it's real. Part of the reason why I stopped writing the book about it is because I realized I think I was becoming a Liz Crokin, and I was just carrying the narrative, even if it wasn't true, if that makes sense. However, because the story just got so outlandish and there was no way I could disprove it, although it's probably true. It is probably true. The Clintons bought an airfield. They bought the airfield under the auspice that they could set up this trafficking ring, and that the trafficking ring was being justified as, well, the reason why we have trafficking ring is because we're trying to stop drugs. so so to try and stop drugs, they open an underground trafficking ring that gives you a diplomatic tunnel of immunity straight into America, because this is how you fight drugs. And guess what? We know this. This is how you fight drugs. Anytime you're gonna have a war on something, it's usually gonna involve, hey, let's set up an underground trafficking ring and do what we're saying. Iran Contra, this happens with guns. This isn't new. You know this. So yeah, it's beautifully well played. This lasted for like a long time, like decades. It got so big that the operation went underground. The original agent associated with that, 3 original agents, 2 of them died mysteriously. The third is just gone. And it looks like the underground cocaine ring is still going. So if you really think about what it means to go into Washington, it's really no different than Lance Armstrong getting into the yellow jersey. All the doping that you had to do to get there, you are now safe. You've made it home. The reason why you made it home is because there is no way anyone else who's going to be fighting for that jersey is not doping. That once you reach a certain elite level, you realize that you were only playing with the professionals, and the professionals would be the ones that want it more than you. The people that want it more than you are going to look like the DA from New York in Monroe County. They're going to have an atrophied ego because that's going to corner them and force them to dope. Lance Armstrong doped because of the atrophy. I know this sounds backwards. You're like, no, he thinks he's above the law because his ego's so big. No, he thinks that his own conscience is not powerful enough to tell him that he cheated. He thinks that having something falsely is still better because the external world has a more powerful witness over him than his internal one. This is Owen Benjamin, by the way. I'm not trying to bring up names. It's just a perfect example that I've personally known. If your inner life is not strong enough, then the fantasies that you have about everyone else's life about you become enough. And this is what it means to be evacuated. And this is typically why the people that are in the positions like my dad in the Marines are the ones that are not able to build an internal life that's thick enough. So they end up asking others to dom them with uniform, with malamu. If you guys are wondering what malamu is, you'll just have to look back. But this is this tangible word for the essence of charisma, the essence of intimidation, the auric power that your body emanates from being in control, from having that internal life, and it's intimidating. We forget how intimidating it is because we're raised with people that have a lot of malamu all the time. But when you get in a situation where you've been pulled over and the malamu comes and knocks on your window, you're going to show your true self like the DA does. You're going to see your true self. So does the foxhole. When I joined the Navy and they mustered us for the Iraq War, I got to know myself. I got to go, oh, wow, this is not what I thought who I was. And you really understand more because the logos of the intensity of the light is there and you get to squirm. I think we should squirm more. But people call me cruel and mean for asking us to squirm. And I think that's because when we see people squirm, I'm one of the few that doesn't actually enjoy drinking the juice of you squirming. I'm watching you squirm because I want you to show me that I can squirm better too. And that if we hold each other in this space, if that cop, which I think this is well above his malamu, especially, see, the cop's already atrophied because he puts on the uniform. He already tells himself in the morning, I am nothing unless I put on my uniform. That's why he doesn't show up to work in sneakers. He's already has to convince himself that his uniform has to be the thing that gives him that power. And it's okay. You're going to want that mask. You're going to want the power of ritual. I'm not here to say that the power of ritual is not important. It's more important than we realize. But you're exposing yourself when you're wrapping yourself in that cellophane, in that saran wrap of that uniform. You are vulnerable now. You're vulnerable because you've told yourself, I'm only strong inside this armor, inside this exoskeleton. Now you're trying to run with all this metal on. You're clanking, you're getting rusty, shit like that. And by the way, you've agreed to represent something that's not you. You've agreed to represent a system that's not you, and so the Freemasons are going to take you out. The Georges, King George and George Washington, if you've signed up because you took the gun, you took the jacket, you took the shoes, you took the food, You took the ladies. You took all the things in New York when you were wandering around New York. Please watch Gangs of New York, really important stream. But when you're walking around New York at that time and you've been bribed with all these things and now it's time to muster, you're damn right those people are going to be held accountable. If they weren't held accountable, it would make this world a million times worse. So the very people, the Georges that we are insisting, if they would go away, that all of us would be magically better, those people are actually giving us about the only firm trellis that we could have to climb out of this, because we are surrounded by other hyena that are going to keep acting like the DA does until enough of us, that 5%, right? That 10th monkey, 100th monkey, right? Whatever ratio it takes, it doesn't take that much. Until that ratio hits and is ready for Aquarius, then all of a sudden, this illusion of objective reality where everyone has to specifically, absolutely agree that there's a good guy, a bad guy, a right way, a wrong way, there's one way or the highway, and all that other shit. Once that fear drops, that petrification drops, people can digest the sun a little bit easier. This whole place is going to light up. And people like me are going to look mundane as fuck. I'm going to be the most boring person you ever met. And I say, let's get there, man. Let's get there. Let's do it. Yeah, baby. What are you talking about? What do you mean, what am I talking about? What are you talking about? One can be or not be, that is all. Yeah, that works. What is ambiguity? What is ambiguity? That's hilarious. Turn a sword into a plowshare and go use it. Oh, yeah, or turn a plowshare into a sword. Guys, there's nothing wrong with killing each other for honor. It's not. I said for honor. Bring back the duels, man. Bring them back. If that's what two people want to do, guys, we already have that. If two people want to go kill each other, all they have to do is enlist. And there's going to be a George that's going to make sure that there's always some kind of event coming around. Oh, we got to go fucking kill these people. Let's go kill them. Yep. Badges. We don't need no stinking badges. All right, I'm going to go Lupercalia on all escalators. Yes, Lupercalia for the win, guys. Lupercalia for the win. Yep. Guys, I'm not in the position where if you're like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, where I'm like, oh no, I'm concerned. You don't know what I'm talking about. Oh my God, I must be broken because, dude, I don't fucking give a shit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, guess what? That's fine. Doesn't matter. Who cares, right? Better question is, why are you here? Anyway, it's probably not even what they were talking about. That person's probably, the irony is like, James, I wasn't even talking about what you were talking about. What you think I was talking about was what you were talking about. It's like, I know. None of us know what we're talking about. This is a giant symbiotic hallucination. And frankly, you guys are great at it. Okay, I see novice is late. If you'd stop calling yourself the novice wanderer, you would eliminate your ability to be late, novice wanderer. Do you understand? You're the one creating the atmosphere where you get to be late because you're calling yourself a novice. Be the expert wanderer, right? Put it on the line, man. I'm just kidding with you. You guys were talking about what I was talking about laterally. Oh, cool. He said laterally. I would love to say laterally instead of literally. Shaved head looks sharp, by the way. Thank you. Guys, I know a lot of you guys are like, please don't stop shaving your face and shave your head. Please do it in that order. A lot of you guys are like, Jace, come on, man. You look. It's like, I get it. I know. I remember I was telling you earlier about your internal life versus your external life. You guys are my external life. It's really important that you were like, James, you're looking sharp. That is really important to me. But man, my internal life is just more. That's all. And it's probably gonna make me bankrupt because we were like, why would we watch James? He won't shave the parts of his head that we've asked him to shave, James. Clearly. From here up, shave. From here down, don't. Except for right here, no neck beard, James. Do all those things. And I'm like, I know, I'm more. And eyebrows. Many of you were like, James, your eyebrows are too long. And I'm just like, you guys, so confusing. Why can't I just, what is it with the body hair? I don't know what to do. I don't know which bob hair to save. and which one does not. I just don't. What am I gonna do? Oh my god. You guys have a great day. I appreciate it. And thank you. Yeah, appreciate the comments. I want you guys to watch me. I need you. I have a symbiotic relationship with you to watch me. And my new book's out. You should check that out. Someone even gave me a super chat because of how good my book is. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. All right, guys. We got some stuff going on this week. I think Zerlith and I are doing a stream on Thursday. Sorry for last week, Zerlith, but like I said, my office. Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Not the eyebrows. Oh, Amel, are you pro or anti? And here's the thing: it makes it even harder because then there's people like Amel, and I'm like, okay, so like one opinion from Amel is like at least 17 Jasons. No offense, Jason Talbot, but I mean, come on, you know. Hold my fucks. I will be back to get. Oh, there we go. All right, cool. And I don't even. It's not even. I don't even know if I like 17. Mel. She's probably higher, to be honest. She's got a good. She's got a good light, you know. So yeah. All right. We'll see you later, guys. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy your Monday. Take care.